Welcome to the Micropod. I'm Kathy Ennis. Join me as I talk all things business for mighty micros, savvy side hustlers, freelancers and solopreneurs. Bite-sized ideas, discussion, inspiration and a few how-tos. Hello and welcome to the Micropod. My name's Kathy Ennis. This is a podcast for people who are running a micro business or thinking about running a micro business. Maybe those people that are running a business on the side of full-time work, the side hustlers out there, and those people that are perhaps solopreneurs, freelancers. So basically it's for people who run small businesses, ultra small businesses, but with brilliant and big ambitions. And this is the first episode of my podcast. And I thought that what I would do is put all of this into context for you, because when you're hearing people talk about things that are there to help you grow, develop in whatever area that you want to, I think it's a really good idea to have an understanding of how they got to be where they are at the moment. So that's what I want to do with you today, is I want to actually talk about what got me to where I am and how it is that I've ended up working with businesses in the way that I do. So I didn't start out to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea that I would be running my own business at any point in my life. That was the furthest thing away from my mind ever. And it was with a lot of things, I think, in many people's lives, it was a combination of chance and things happening to me. So had a pretty, I suppose, inauspicious start. Back in the 1970s, went to a half decent school. Not very much was expected of me, I must say. It was in the era just when kids here in the UK had the opportunity to go off to university, and in those days they were supported to go to university as well. But I don't think it was expected that that's what would happen to me, because it never happened to anybody in my family. But through one thing and another, things happened to work in my favour, and managed to get a few half decent exam qualifications, and hey presto, there I was, off to do a degree, which I loved, absolutely loved. It fitted me for absolutely nothing because it was non-vocational. I ended up studying a whole variety of things, including film. So it meant that for at least 2 years of my 3-year degree, I was sitting in the dark, which was absolutely lovely. But I came out of there and it was, where do I get a job? Because it was right in the heart of a recession. I ended up getting a job, and I didn't really know at the time, but it was something that I suppose I could say was my vocation. I ended up getting a job in my local public library, and I absolutely loved it. And I went off after that, and I did my professional information qualifications, and I worked in further and higher education for nearly 20 years. And then after that, I was fortunate to get a job working for a professional body, and I spent nearly 10 years with them. So if you're doing your maths and adding things up, it was around about my 42nd birthday that you could say that I entered the world of entrepreneurship, when I started my first side hustle. So I was working full time. I couldn't afford to leave my job. There was no way I could do that. And actually, even then, at that time, I didn't realise that what I was doing was starting a business. I thought I was doing something that I really liked. I was involved in something that I really enjoyed doing. And that then would bring me in a little bit of extra income. And I don't know if there are many people out there who feel exactly the same way. It's sort of a hobby that turns into something that you might start charging people for. The one thing that I will say is that very quickly it became an obsession with me, and I loved doing that far more than I loved doing the day job. It did take me quite a few years to get myself to the point where I could leave the day job and support myself through the money that I earned in the business. And there were a few ups and downs on the way, but that's basically the genesis of where my business started. So inauspicious childhood, 25 years of a career, and then it was into business. So I'm sitting here talking to you now. I'm in my early 60s, so I've been running my businesses, because there have been 3 of them now, for the last 20 years. In fact, this is my 21st birthday year, so hey, happy birthday to me. And so what brings me to what I'm doing today? Well, it's actually that experience, because yes, 21 years ago, I started my first side hustle. It took me about 10 years, 8 to 10 years to work it out, so that I was then actually able to go at it full time. But even when I did that, it was difficult. When I left university, I came out into a job market that was in the middle of a recession. When I started my business as a micro business, i.e. moving from side hustling into the business being the full-time thing, yay, it was lovely. I got paid money to leave my job. I took my redundancy money and I was as happy as Larry. And then another recession hit. And interestingly, all of my clients disappeared almost overnight. At that time, I was working, and my business was around training and personal development. And the first thing that happens in a recession with most organizations is that they cut all unnecessary spending, and one of those is on training. So where things had actually been going really well, they started going really wrong. And, the fact is that what I can say now, and I say it to all of the people that I work with, is that business is nothing but a series of curveballs. One of the key things when I'm working on businesses with business planning is about risk management and identifying what could go wrong. And I think this comes from very much from this point of view, is that things went wrong for me, things go wrong for lots of people. Let's try and prepare for them. I had no way of dealing with what went wrong, because at that particular point in time, I had no experience, and I didn't actually have a network around me. The way the world is today, where we can network both, at current times we can't network face to face, but generally we can, and also we've got all of the virtual things that are available to us. At that point in time, when I first started, those things weren't there. There wasn't the amount of information, very early days, quite actually, of the internet and access to information like that. And it was quite a difficult time. Where do you go? Who do you turn to? So it was quite an interesting time to be starting a business by somebody who's incredibly naive about business. And I think that's the biggest strength that I've got. And that's the thing that I rely on mostly when I'm working with my clients at the moment, is the fact that if things could go wrong, they went wrong for me. And what I had to do is I had to find methodologies for getting myself out of the wrong and into the right. And if I'm working with a client now, what I do is I help them, not by telling them what to do, but giving them examples and talking through with them what possibly they could do, what would fit with them, what would fit with their personality, how would they manage those kinds of things. So yeah, lots of things went wrong. There were lots of ups, some really nice times. There were quite a few downs, and it was in one of the really bad down times. I mean, things seemed to come along all at the same time. I took my redundancy, a recession hit. My redundancy money didn't last very long. Financially, we were really quite tight at home. And then an awful thing happened. My pension was defrauded. So everything that I'd prepared myself for the future, almost 30 years worth of investment into a pension, was gone overnight. And it was a really, really dark time, financially and emotionally. And it was when I hit that bottom point that the light bulb came on. And what the light bulb was about was the fact that I was doing a lot of the things that the textbooks said that you need to do when you're running a business, but I wasn't actually really running a business. I wasn't treating it as an entity. It was still almost as if it was the side hustle. When I was running my side hustle, I was working full time. I had a regular salary coming in. So if I didn't make money in the business, it didn't really matter because the salary was coming in. So if I made a loss, it didn't really matter. I'd enjoyed what I was doing. But, I needed now to actually really get serious about it because things were serious. And I needed to start making some money and sort of paying my own way. I'm incredibly lucky that I've got a hugely supportive husband, who has been my rock for all of these years. So that was a very much a plus point that I had to deal with. But I had to get serious about what I was doing. And the thing that I realised is that business is actually really quite simple. You have to be able to do two things, but you don't have to be extraordinarily clever. You don't have to be fascinating, or you don't have to be mega creative. What you do need to be able to do is add up, because numbers in business matter, and you do have to be able to plan. And that was really my light bulb, is that I realised that although I'd been doing this stuff for quite a long time, I didn't really understand how businesses worked. I didn't understand how to plan, and I didn't understand how to, within the business, plan for the amounts of monies coming in and the amounts of monies going out. Now, to some of you, that might sound, well, she's a bit daft. What does she mean? She didn't know those kinds of things. But you'd be surprised the number of people that I come up against on a day-to-day basis who make up a price because they think that's what people are going to pay, rather than thinking about how much does my business cost? How do I build my pricing around what it is that I do? How do I build it around the level of experience and expertise that I've got? So it might sound simplistic, but it actually isn't. So that was my light bulb moment. I needed to understand how numbers worked in my business, and I needed to understand how to plan my business. And I made it my job to go and do that. I found that most of the business planning processes that were out there were not written for a business like mine. They were written for businesses that were going to be hiring staff, maybe had premises, and probably going out somewhere to finance the business startup or the business growth. I wasn't a business like that. I'm a micro business. I am the business. I'm the chief cook and the bottle washer. If it doesn't get done by me, it doesn't get done. Okay. These days I do outsource some things, but at that point I couldn't afford to. I had to do it all myself. So that kind of planning wasn't suitable for me. So I had to ingest all of this stuff and then start thinking about, well, how would I do it in a business like mine? If I need to think about my products and my prices, who my customers are, how I get my message out to my customers, how can I do that within a business like mine, where I'm the person that's in charge and I'm the person responsible for doing everything? So I started to develop my own planning process, and that started to work. I also started to be much more systemized and systematic in what I did. I started to introduce automations and processes so that I wasn't reinventing wheels all of the time. That's the worst thing as a sole business person, when you're on your own, is to keep having to do things over and over and over again, or repeating things. If you can put a process in place that allows you to get on with what you do best, and they all take care of themselves in the background, that's really what you should be doing. So I started doing that in the business, started taking the numbers much more seriously, started my own version of business planning. And then interesting things started to happen, because my business started to become more successful. And I was still working in things to do with personal development. I was working with quite strongly with the concept of personal brand, and I was helping people understand how to promote themselves, but also things to do with training around things like public speaking and that kind of stuff. But interesting things started to happen, in as much as, because I networked effectively, other business people would start saying, Kath, can we go and have a cup of coffee and have a chat? And I've got a bit of an issue I know that you do this. I'd like to talk to you about how you do it, and how I might be able to introduce that kind of thing into my business. So go out for a cup of coffee, sit in a coffee shop, have a cup of coffee. And I'm a very visual person, so I'd probably grab a napkin and I'd draw a diagram on it for the person to say, do this, do that, do the other thing. And they'd go off and they'd start doing that thing and they'd start getting more successful. And I remember a friend saying to me one day, because I was saying, I'm so busy, I haven't had time to do, I can't even remember what it was now, I haven't had time to do such and such. And they said, well, where are you spending your time? And I explained to them, and they said, so how much are you charging for that? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, people are making use of your knowledge and your understanding. So what are you charging for that? And I said, nothing. And they said, you're daft. And I thought, you know what? I am daft. And so I thought, actually, I'm offering a service here. It's based on what I've learned about business, what I've learned about planning, what I've learned about managing the money in my business. It's based on the things that I've attempted and have gone wrong, and the things that I've done and have gone right. And I'm saving that person grief, time, effort and money by the benefit of that kind of experience and some of that sort of guidance that I'm giving. So I spoke to somebody about that and said, well, what do you think I'm doing? And they said, well, you're mentoring. It's not coaching because there's too much bossiness, and so that you're mentoring. And so I started investigating this concept of business mentoring, very specifically business mentoring, not mentoring, just mentoring, business mentoring. And I found the Association of Business Mentors, and I became a member of that. And I did my qualifications, my initial qualifications in that. And I'm also accredited by the International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring. So I've got those qualifications, and that's what I spend my time doing now. I work with micro businesses, side hustlers, freelancers, consultants, your proverbial what might used to have been called one-man bands, and what is a term that I abhor with every fibre of my being. People sometimes say with derision and down their noses, lifestyle businesses. There's nothing lifestyle about it, I can tell you, because actually my lifestyle went straight out of the window when I started a micro business, because you don't have very much. It's all work, no life and no style, I can tell you. And so that's what I do now, is I work with businesses like that, and they can be any type of business, a Pilates teacher, a nutritionist, somebody who sells courses. Oh goodness me, the world is your lobster, as my dad used to say. It's basically the thing that strings them together, holds them together, is that it's generally either one person running the business, being everything in the business, or very few people. And I work with them now to help them be as successful as they could. I made all the mistakes so they don't have to. That's what I always tell them. I act as a helicopter on their business. I'm invested in them as individuals. I'm not invested in their businesses in as much as I can actually see what's happening there, probably clearer than they can, because they're so entrenched in it. In the same way, I can't see everything within my own business. I need somebody to say, hey, Kath, that thing you've been doing, stop doing it, because you need to concentrate in this direction. So that's the sort of thing that I do. And my biggest learning, and it is the thing that I talk about all of the time, and I advocate hugely, is that businesses will succeed if they are planned. I don't mean that one you take off to the bank, but I do mean that one that says, this is my objective for the year, and it has to be measurable. It can't be anything else. If you can't measure it, it's just a wish. This is my objective or objectives for the year. These are the steps I'm going to take to get there. This is how I'm going to measure what actually happens, so that I can make adjustments along the way. And these are the systems and processes that I'm going to put into my business. And I think that for me, that's the thing that will make micro businesses, side hustle businesses, consultant businesses, solopreneurs, freelancers, call it what you will, those businesses that are generally one person operated, that's what will make them successful. So I'm going to be sharing in my podcast information to help businesses like that. I'm going to be doing some how-tos. I'm going to be helping as much as I possibly can businesses on the very micro side be very macro with their products, services, and, because I don't think it's a dirty word, their profit. So I hope you found that useful. I hope it's given you a bit of a background as to where I'm coming from in terms of what the podcast is about. And I look forward to you joining me on some of my future episodes. So thank you very much for joining me, and until next time. You have been listening to the Micropod with me, Kathy Ennis. Make sure to check out all episodes on my blog at www.littlepiggy.ltd and your favourite podcast platforms. Join me again next time for more bite-sized info on all things micro business.